This video is brought to you by True Tales of Buried Treasure, the largest collection of old treasure magazines in the West. On our website, you can search for individual treasure stories by region, or buy our original magazines themselves. To pay us a visit, please click on the link in the description. Enjoy. The legends of lost mines in the Southwest are numerous, but for legends per square mile, the Wichita Mountains of southwest Oklahoma surpass all other ranges of similar size. I grew up on a farm just south of these rugged granite hills, and as a boy, I spent every spare moment exploring caves, searching for abandoned gold mines, and interviewing anyone who could provide a thread of evidence to support the legends of lost Spanish gold in the Wichitas, particularly in Devil's Canyon. When I first became interested in Devil's Canyon, its history, skeletons, and treasures, it was hard to find more than fragments of information. But as I dug through archives, old Spanish records, and dusty newspaper files, the pieces began to form a more complete story, one that is only now being told. The tale of Devil's Canyon is one of Spanish conquistadors dressed in gleaming armor, Spanish miners digging for gold, treasure-laden pack trains, bloody massacres, hidden treasures, and, of course, lost mines. This craggy canyon stretches 1.5 miles through the Wichita Mountains before flowing into the North Fork of the Red River. It lies in the far southwest corner of Kiowa County, between Flat Top Mountain and Soldier Spring Mountain, and is thick with underbrush and Spanish treasure tales. These legends are likely rooted in truth, as evidence of the Spaniards' presence has been repeatedly discovered, even including remnants of an ancient highway that once passed through the area. Farmers still unearth human bones along the nearby sandy riverbank, a silent testament to the early explorers who met ill-fated ends. No one knows exactly when the first armor-clad Spaniards set foot in these mountains, which rise abruptly from the Great Plains. Originally called the Sierra Humanos, they were later renamed the Wichitas after the native tribe. Some historians suggest the first Spaniard to visit was Friar Juan de Salas, who established a temporary mission in 1629. Others believe gold seekers under the leadership of Captains Hernan Martin and Don Diego del Castillo arrived in 1650. There were undoubtedly other explorers who wandered through this jagged range, which was the first set of hills Spaniards would encounter east of Santa Fe after crossing the plains. The country would have been irresistible to any Spaniard with an eye for gold. In 1760, a Frenchman known only as Brevel, a hunter and traveler, recounted a tale that suggests the Spanish were mining in the Wichitas at least as far back as 2 centuries ago. He described a journey taken some 40 years earlier, during which he and a party of young Indian men set off from the Panis Nation in search of horses. Following the Red River upstream, they encountered mountains rich in rock salt and an ore the Indians claimed was the white people's treasure, which Brevel later learned was silver. He also reported hearing noises like cannon fire or distant thunder, which the Indians attributed to the spirits of white men working their treasure. This, Brevel discovered, was the sound of the mines being blown, a phenomenon known in all Spanish mining regions. Brevel's account suggests that by 1760, the Spaniards were actively mining in the Wichitas. Oklahoma's most historic highway, often marked on old maps as the Great Spanish Road to the Red River, adds further credibility to these tales. The earliest map that charts this ancient road was created by Major Stephen H. Long during his 1819 expedition from Santa Fe through the Texas Panhandle. The Spanish Trail led eastward along the Canadian River, down the east side of the North Fork of the Red River, and southward, eventually crossing to Nacogdoches, passing through the very heart of Devil's Canyon. The ancient trail from Texas to Natchitoches, Louisiana, was first commissioned by the Spanish governor of Texas in 1786. Ironically, the task was given to a Frenchman named Pedro Vial, who had been hired by the Spanish to explore a route that had originally been blazed between San Antonio and Santa Fe. In 1788, Vial was once again tasked with finding the shortest path from Santa Fe to Natchitoches, and from there to San Antonio. Vial set out from Santa Fe on June 24, 1788, accompanied by Francisco Xavier Fragoso, Santiago Fernandez, and a squad of 30 soldiers. As the party crossed the Red River into Oklahoma near the Towvaya villages, Fragoso, the chronicler, noted the towering Wichita Mountains to the north. By August, they had reached Natchitoches, successfully opening the first communication between the distant provinces of New Mexico and Louisiana. A year later, Vial and Fragoso returned to Santa Fe, having spent the winter in San Antonio. These tireless explorers had covered a remarkable distance, 361 leagues from Santa Fe to Natchitoches, 51 leagues to Nacogdoches, 154 leagues to San Antonio, and 348 leagues back to Santa Fe. In total, their trek spanned 914 leagues, or about 2,300 miles, an unprecedented journey for two lone adventurers at the time. In 1792, Pedro Vial opened yet another route, this time between Santa Fe and St. Louis, a trail that would later gain fame as the Santa Fe Trail. Despite the importance of his expeditions, the Spaniards made little use of Vial's extensive knowledge. Over the course of 26 years, Vial blazed trails from San Antonio to Santa Fe, from Santa Fe to Natchitoches, and from Santa Fe to St. Louis. Some historians even speculate that Vial might have been the first white man to explore the headwaters of the Missouri. After decades of service to Spain, Vial died of natural causes in 1814 in Santa Fe. The route that Vial blazed along the Red River to Nacogdoches in 1786 was not fully followed in later years, but accounts suggest it passed through the Texas Panhandle near Adobe Walls and entered Oklahoma just north of the North Fork of the Red River. From there, it followed the east side of the stream to Devil's Canyon. The many caravans of ox-drawn carts with their broad wooden wheels and pack trains that traverse this route are well documented. Until 1892, no official record existed of Spanish or Mexican miners in the Wichita Mountains or Devil's Canyon. However, during the famous Greer County case in the Supreme Court, United States versus Texas, a wealth of eyewitness testimony was gathered. These 2 volumes of depositions became a treasure trove of information regarding early travels through what was then Greer County, Texas. At that time, all the land west of the North Fork of the Red River was part of Greer County. In 1896, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Oklahoma, and today the counties of Greer, Harmon, Jackson, and part of Beckham comprise that area of the Sooner State. One of the most fascinating accounts of Devil's Canyon comes from Simon N. Cockrell, a 93-year-old frontiersman who testified in 1892. Cockrell recalled being with Holland Coffee when the trading post was built at the mouth of the North Fork of the Red River. Between May 1833 and February 1836, Cockrell hunted game for the post and remembered a settlement of Spaniards mining in the mountains about 40 miles upriver. 5 miles farther upstream on the west side, he encountered a Mexican sheep ranch where he met an 18-year-old boy who lived there alone. The boy told Cockrell that his parents had recently been killed by Comanches. Cockrell vividly remembered that the old Spanish trail passed through the village. Years later, when he returned to the site, the once thriving settlement lay in ruins, with the stone chimneys toppled to the ground. Cockrell was likely the first American to encounter Mexican miners in the Wichita Mountains. Just a year later, in 1834, the U.S. government made its first official visit to the Wichita Indians, who were then camped in Devil's Canyon. During this visit, the Dodge-Leavenworth expedition of the 1st U.S. Dragoons held peace talks with the Wichita tribe. Many old settlers, cattlemen, Texas Rangers, and soldiers of that time recalled the old Red River Spanish Trail, and some even testified to having seen Mexican pack trains traveling along the ancient route years before. One such witness was 79-year-old Martin H. Ragsdale, who lived in Paris, Texas in 1893. Ragsdale remembered living near Jonesboro in 1824, when a large group of Mexican traders from Santa Fe stopped at a watering hole near his family's farm on the Red River. He also recalled another incident in northwest Lamar County, Texas, when a Mexican burro train was attacked by hostile Native Americans in the early 1800s. The beleaguered traders were forced to dump their load of gold bars into Palmer Lake. According to Ragsdale, it was believed that the Indians had massacred the Mexicans in 1816, forcing them to abandon 11 burro loads of gold in the lake. When Judge Rutherford moved to Texas in 1835 and cleared his farm, he found 8 musket barrels, and later, numerous human bones were unearthed in the area. It was originally thought that none of the traders survived, but Ragsdale noted that 3 managed to escape and were later traced to Louisiana, although none ever returned to recover the gold. Another eyewitness, Thomas F. Roberts, a 73-year-old resident of Lamar County, remembered seeing Mexican traders on the trail in 1838. He recounted, "In 1838, a party of Mexican traders came down from Santa Fe along the Red River, traveled east, purchased goods and shipped them up the Red River to the mouth of the Kiamichi. There, they loaded the goods onto wagons and transported them across the plains to Chihuahua." Richard Boren of Nocona, Texas, also recalled an incident from 1839 when a company of 100 Mexicans crossed the trail near Paris. Led by Henry Connolly, the group traveled from Chihuahua with 600 mules loaded with gold, silver bullion, and supplies. Upon reaching Fort Townsend, they transferred the bullion onto a steamboat bound for New Orleans. Given the vast amounts of gold transported along the ancient road, it's no wonder that nearly every tributary along the Red River carries tales of burro loads of gold being hidden during Indian attacks. Even without official records, these legends provide a detailed map of the long-forgotten trail. R. H. Burnett, a resident of Greer County, recalled seeing a Mexican caravan of wagons and ox-drawn carts traveling the trail as late as 1848. This was likely one of the last to traverse the old Spanish road, as the Mexican Southwest had become part of the United States following the Mexican-American War. Evidence of the ancient road isn't only found in historical documents. Several human skeletons, Spanish coins, and relics were uncovered after the area opened to white settlement. One skeleton was found at the base of a large tree on the Corwin Adams farm, about 9 miles northeast of Tipton, Oklahoma, along with a steel stiletto and several old Spanish coins. In later years, Adams unearthed 2 more skeletons while digging a cellar. Legend holds that a Spanish pack train was massacred at this very site. The earliest known search for treasure by Americans in the Devil's Canyon area took place in 1849. Thomas K. Carmack, a Mexican war veteran from Boulder, Colorado, testified that in that year, he joined a company of 80 gold seekers bound for the Wichita Mountains. The expedition was led by a man named Loving, who possessed a map given to him by an elderly Mexican. The map reportedly showed the location of gold mines once worked by Spaniards. The group met near present-day Gainesville, Texas, and elected Robert McFall as their captain. They set out that summer, following the ancient trail along the Red River. According to stories they had heard, during one journey out of the hills, the Mexicans had been attacked by Native Americans, forcing them to throw their gold into a lake about 60 miles from the mines. Carmack's party, equipped for a 6-month journey, ventured into the Wichita Mountains with their burro train. However, while camped in the mountains, 21 of their members were captured by Native Americans. After being held for 4 days, they were released and sent back to where they had come from. Although the expedition found no gold mines, Carmack noted seeing evidence of what might have been an old smelting furnace, as there was burnt stone resembling slag near the site. Carmack's group was not the only one searching for gold in the area. Another expedition left Clarksville, Texas, in the spring of 1849, inspired by reports of gold recently brought in by some Indians, according to the Northern Standard. This group was also searching for 27 mule loads of bullion said to be hidden near the mouth of the Little Wichita River, close to a huge boulder. Although they, too, found nothing, crumbled adobe ruins were later discovered at the river's mouth, believed by many to have been the remains of an old Mexican settlement. J.C. Settles, an old buffalo hunter, also recalled a time when he was camped near Devil's Canyon, alongside a large tribe of Comanches. A Spaniard in Settles' company told him about a Mexican settlement that had once existed in the mountains. According to the Spaniard, the Mexicans had fought 2 significant battles with the local Native Americans, both of which ended in defeat for the Mexicans. The Spaniard claimed that the Mexicans had a large mine on the side of a mountain and had hidden their gold at the bottom of the shaft. Settles believed he found an old Spanish mine about 6 miles upstream from Devil's Canyon, roughly 2.5 miles west of the North Fork of the Red River. Scattered around the mine were rusty tools and pieces of iron and copper. He recounted that they found a rock blocking the entrance to the shaft, which they had to blast out. Inside, they discovered part of a human skeleton. You could tell beyond any doubt that the shaft had been worked, not with picks, but with a small chisel, Settles said. He believed the Spaniard had been telling the truth, especially after hearing from Comanche Chief White Eagle that his tribe had wiped out a group of Spaniards working in the area. While searching for the mine, Settles also came across the remains of an old Mexican settlement at the mouth of Devil's Canyon. Among the artifacts he found were large iron pieces, possibly used by the Spaniards to melt ore. He also discovered an enormous quantity of ashes in a cave nearby. 8 or 10 tons of it, he claimed. As he dug through the ash, Settles found charred bones, skulls, whetstones, and even a knife. Settles was not the last to explore the area. In a later testimony during the Greer County case, William Kyla, a surveyor from Vernon, Texas, recounted visiting the Wichita Mountains around 1850 while on an expedition with General Edward Burleson to track Native Americans. His account, along with others, continues to fuel the legend of lost Spanish mines in the region. In yet another expedition, a company of soldiers from Fort Davis marched into the Wichita Mountains in pursuit of renegades. Their guide, a Mexican, pointed out a spot south of the Navajo Mountains, about 10 miles east of present-day Altus, and mentioned that a silver mine once worked by Mexicans was located there. Despite this information, Kyle's brother later searched for the mine without success. The Mexicans had been searching these hills for lost treasure long before the Americans, which is why so many tales of their endeavors have been passed down. One such treasure hunter was 57-year-old Jose Martinez, who lived in Greer County in 1893. Martinez remembered that when he was a boy, he had heard many stories about Mexican miners in the Wichita Mountains. He recounted that his father, 2 uncles, and 7 other men were killed by Native Americans near Spanish Fort, Texas, while transporting burro loads of silver. In 1858, Martinez joined a group of treasure hunters led by W. Briggs in search of the buried silver. Although they found the ruins of the Mexican settlement in Devil's Canyon, they uncovered no treasure and eventually gave up. Briggs was another explorer who scoured Devil's Canyon. He discovered the remnants of makeshift forts built by the Mexican miners. When he first came across the ruins, only a few fallen cedar logs and posts remained. Briggs learned that the Comanches had fought a group of Spaniards near a butte called Cedar Top Mountain, located about 3 miles southwest of present-day Retrop. He also found the remains of a crude fort, about 2 miles above the mouth of Spring Creek, roughly 20 miles upstream from Devil's Canyon, on the west side of the North Fork of the Red River. Additionally, Briggs located another stone fortress about 18 miles southeast of Mangum, near the North Fork, which was circular and measured about 300 feet in diameter. Within the fort, he found depressions that resembled graves, along with broken plates, spearheads, and glass shards. Briggs wasn't the only one to report these crude forts. S.C. Talley Sr., a resident near Mangum, also verified the existence of one of these stone forts near Spring Creek. Talley shared a story told to him by Preston Bell, who lived on Spring Creek. According to Bell, an old Native American said that his tribe had fought a group of white people at the fort for 3 days, eventually killing them all. The battle, as far as the Native American could recall, occurred when the Comanche chief Lone Wolf was just a baby. James T. Pollard of Greer County also witnessed these ruins. Pollard first visited the Wichita Mountains in 1859 and returned the following year with Ross's Rangers. During his exploration, he discovered the crumbled adobe walls of an old town near the mouth of the Little Wichita River, where earlier hunters had searched for Spanish gold in 1849. Pollard also found the remains of a copper mine, a smelter, and crucibles about 10 miles up the Red River from present-day Spanish Fort, Texas. Further exploration led him to the adobe ruins in Devil's Canyon and the areas west of the canyon near Spring Creek, where he came across a mine shaft about 18 feet deep. Pollard discovered tools, crucibles, and other items, confirming that Mexican miners had once worked the site. What first piqued Pollard's interest in these ruins were stories he heard from 2 very old Mexican men who frequently stopped by Doan's Crossing near Fort Sill. Their tales, along with the relics Pollard found, provided further evidence of the long-forgotten Mexican mining operations in the Wichita Mountains. They claimed to have been captured by Native Americans when they were boys and raised by the Comanches. Living near Devil's Canyon, they recounted seeing traces of Spanish miners working in the area. According to their story, the miners had been ambushed during a battle, leaving behind relics scattered along the trails. George Pollard remembered hearing the tale of a fierce battle between Spaniards and Native Americans at Cedar Top Mountain, where remnants of armor and other Spanish artifacts were found. These stories, passed down through generations, hint at the presence of bold adventurers who once traveled through these lands. Many ancient weapons have been discovered in the Texas Panhandle, a region traversed by Spanish explorers. In 1925, a Spanish flag standard was plowed up about a mile south of Happy, Texas, on the Ray Olding farm. Nearby, an iron cross, halberd lance, and battle axe head, all of the type used during Coronado's time, were uncovered. North of Spearman, on Palo Duro Creek, a rusted pair of Spanish handcuffs and bridle bits were found. Another pair of bridle bits was unearthed 3 miles north of Canyon on Spring Draw. One of the most intriguing discoveries occurred in 1887, when 3 boys stumbled upon a circle of 10 to 15 swords stuck into the parched earth, their hilts embedded deeply in the clay. The boys managed to free one sword by loosening it with water, only to break the hilt from the rusty blade in the process. The weapon was a thin-bladed rapier, a style introduced after 1700. Despite their efforts, the boys were never able to relocate the site, leaving the mystery of the Spanish swords buried in the windswept plains. By 1890, Devil's Canyon was attracting attention, not only for its historical significance, but also among geological circles. In 1891, Texas Assistant State Geologist W.F. Cummins visited the area to examine gold and silver prospects. Guided by buffalo hunter J.C. Settles, Cummins explored the ruins of 2 old towns in the canyon. He described the farthest western settlement as a Mexican town, while the eastern site appeared to be an indigenous village. Cummins and his team dug through the crumbled ruins, uncovering a wealth of artifacts. The Mexican town spanned 20 acres, with buildings constructed of unburned clay bricks, each measuring about 12 to 18 feet long and 12 feet wide. Ash pits, used as fireplaces, were found in the corners of the structures. Among the debris, Cummins unearthed bones from deer, antelope, dogs, raccoons, turkeys, and buffalo, along with objects like copper, brass, silver, beads, pottery, gunflints, and more. The nearby indigenous village, about half a mile east, featured thatched huts with decayed cedar poles and ash-filled hearths at their centers. Trees as large as 18 inches in diameter had grown in the ruins of the Mexican town, while smaller trees were found in the indigenous village. The stumps near the Mexican settlement showed signs of being cut with axes on 2 sides, in contrast to the trees cut by the indigenous people, who chopped all around the trunks. A couple of years after Cummins' excavation, Professor James Mooney of the Bureau of Ethnology also became intrigued by the site, further investigating its historical significance. The cave where 10 tons of charcoal and ashes had been discovered particularly fascinated Professor James Mooney. In October 1893, he was guided to the mysterious cave by a cattleman named John M. Passmore, who had previously found an assortment of artifacts in the ash pit, including an iron quirt, hammer, beads, arrows, spikes, and skull bones. As Mooney excavated, he uncovered a gun barrel, a gun frizzen, and several bones. The reason for the presence of so many human remains and artifacts in the cave remains a mystery that archaeologists would still love to solve. At the mouth of Devil's Canyon, along the old Spanish road from Santa Fe, various carvings have been found on trees. Among them are depictions of a climbing turtle, sombreros, arrows, and Spanish helmets. Several settlers have also claimed to have seen ancient Spanish inscriptions at the east base of Teepee Mountain. In 1868, cattleman N. Winters discovered foundation stones arranged like a large one-room building, further suggesting historical significance in the area. When Winters homesteaded at the mouth of Devil's Canyon in 1901, the Wichita Mountains were already teeming with gold seekers, and Devil's Canyon was heavily prospected. In April 1902, the Mangum Star published a story that caused quite a stir. miners in the Wichita Mountains had unearthed an 85-pound gold nugget, reported to be 83% pure, near Devil's Canyon. Although the exact richness of the find was debated, it provided evidence of past mining activity. Olin Talley of Hobart also found the Cave of Ashes and firmly believed it had been used as a smelter by Spaniards during their gold extraction. Talley had heard stories passed down by old Kiowa tribesmen that the Spaniards had been working a mine when the Kiowas attacked and killed the miners, seizing about 50 burro loads of gold and hiding it somewhere in Canyon Diablo. Only the Kiowa chiefs knew the location of the treasure, and they kept it secret until the next chief was chosen. In 1901, a German named Mark Sauerberg opened a saloon in Lugert, just northwest of Devil's Canyon. Around that time, a 65-year-old Mexican man arrived in the area and stayed for 2 or 3 months. The Mexican recounted a story about a group he had once been part of, which had searched the west side of King Mountain for a treasure hidden by Mexican miners. They were attacked by Native Americans and took refuge atop King Mountain, fighting for their lives. The man didn't say if he had returned to continue the search, but Sauerberg believed his story. Later, Sauerberg found a human skeleton and other remains near the west side of King Mountain, possibly linked to the same incident. Legends of lost Spanish mines and buried treasure continued to draw prospectors to the area. One such treasure hunter was Dr. F.R. Green, who teamed up with Forrest Edwards, a longtime resident of the region. Edwards had located an old Spanish mine years earlier with Herman Lehman, a former captive of Native Americans who had obtained maps of the mines from a Mexican. Though the mine was known to contain rich copper deposits, it is unknown whether Dr. Green ever reopened it. Lehman himself was a respected figure with a well-documented history. In 1905, an elderly Native American woman from Twin Mountains, 7 miles southeast of Devil's Canyon, shared a story of her tribe's conflict with the Spaniards. According to her, the Kiowa had fought the Spaniards and killed them all, burying 3 burro loads of Spanish gold in the mountains. She, along with 2 warriors, had buried the treasure 70 to 80 years earlier. After her return to the area, one of the warriors died in Texas while the other failed to recover the treasure despite an extensive search. Relics from these events have been unearthed throughout the region. In 1891, a pair of Spanish brittle bits was discovered on a farm south of Mangum. A few years later, an old Spanish saddlet was found west of Mangum. And in 1935, L.H. Tittle found a pair of Spanish bits near Granite Mountain. Other finds include a Spanish tethering weight with a coat of arms engraved on it, likely used to stake out horses or mules, discovered a few miles south of Cache. In Devil's Canyon, relics of all kinds, Spanish swords, knives, spearheads, sleigh bells, Native American arrowheads, stone tools, and even U.S. cavalry spurs and bullet molds have been found since the area was first settled. The rich history and abundance of artifacts continue to capture the imaginations of treasure hunters and historians alike. The Winters family of Altus now holds an impressive collection of artifacts discovered over the years by the late Mamie and Lee Winters during their time living near the mouth of Devil's Canyon. One cave near the haunted canyon is said to conceal treasure from a small Spanish ship that sailed up the North Fork to the canyon's mouth. Legend has it that before the Spaniards could depart, they were forced to hide the gold in a cave, sealing it shut and leaving the ship's anchor hanging outside as a marker. Although the rusty anchor has reportedly been spotted at various times, nature has kept the cave's secret hidden. Another legend speaks of Spanish miners embedding a gold cross into a tree to mark the burial of a brass cannon filled with gold. It is said that perhaps one day, a bulldozer cutting through Devil's Canyon might unearth this gold-stuffed cannon, which in itself would be worth a fortune. A mysterious landmark on the canyon floor has piqued the interest of local treasure hunters. This unusual marker was crafted in the shape of a large turtle, measuring about 20 feet long. Around the turtle's head were 12 smaller cobblestones, each embedded deep in the earth. Another 12 stones extended from the forefeet to the center stone, which formed the body, and 12 more led to each of the hind feet. The turtle's head pointed northwest, while its tail pointed southeast. Carvings on the head included an S and a coiled snake, while the center stone bore the inscriptions SH and RN1. The east hindfoot was marked with an I, and the tailstone was carved with a J. Sadly, years ago, the rock turtle was destroyed when a stock pond was built near the head of Devil's Canyon, and its spillway cut through the path of the formation. The perfectly shaped landmark was bulldozed, leaving the mystery of its purpose unsolved. We may never fully unravel the story of Devil's Canyon or the Spanish road that once passed through it, but evidence of this ancient trail remains. Eyewitness accounts confirm that the road was traveled as late as 1848, and that settlements or crude forts once stood along its route. The fallen ruins and sun-baked bricks bear witness to the path once taken by nameless explorers. The scattered ruins, the cave of ashes, the crude smelters, and the countless relics all lend credence to the legends of Spaniards mining in Devil's Canyon and bearing their gold along the old Santa Fe Nacogdoches Trail on the Red River. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.